So now once again, we are going to look at some more of our fruit that we produce as artists for the kingdom. And what we want to see right now is, after realizing that God is seeing us, He's observant, and He invites us into His kingdom, though we are these weak vessels, what fruit that can produce in us and should produce in us is this truthful reality. What I mean by truthful reality is that the art that we produce, the fruit of our art, the fruit of our stories, of our music, of our films, whatever it may be, the fruit will express both the reality of a broken world, but also the truth of Jesus' victory at the same time. Jesus Himself told us straight out, in this world you will have tribulation, but take heart, because I have overcome the world. The artists of the Bible, the poets and the prophets, they, even before hearing these words from Jesus, already had no hesitation in expressing these two seemingly opposite or contradictory realities and truths. These two extremes existing at the same time. See, the enemy, in trying to discourage you or to separate you from your calling, will continue to try to give you only partial truth. And so he will begin to discourage you by pointing out just how broken this world is. And indeed, this world is broken. But he will hide the fact of Jesus' victory. Or he will simply present this sort of hope that doesn't seem to relate to the brokenness, and perhaps can even create some sort of pride, or even this state of trying to distance ourselves from the brokenness, and thus distance ourselves from broken people. But we're called to be victors who come to the broken, being able to relate with them. And we find Paul doing this in his second letter to the Corinthians in chapter 4. He wrote just this incredible poem, or this incredible long sermon, whatever we want to call this, where he says, we now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay, like the vessels containing this great treasure. This makes it clear that our power comes from God, not ourselves. And then he goes on to describe us as pressed on every side by troubles, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, hunted down, but never abandoned by the God who sees us, knocked down, but not destroyed, because God will not let us be destroyed. Though we suffer in our bodies, continue to share in the death of Jesus, yet we live under constant danger of death because we serve Jesus, so that His life may be evident in our dying bodies. And that is the hope. And that is what we can show with our stories. In this brokenness, the life of Jesus still being evident. He goes on later on to say that's why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed. He even says our present troubles are small and they won't last long, but they produce this glory. So in our art, our stories, our songs, whatever it may be, when we really understand this, and this becomes, these two extremes become a part of our identity, we will be able to create art that relates to those who are broken, those who experience suffering, because we too suffer, and yet we can express this hope. The hope that Peter wrote about in his first letter, chapter 5, where he says, "In his kindness, God called you to share in his eternal glory. So after you have suffered a little while, he will restore, support, and strengthen you and place you on a firm foundation." That's the fruit of being an artist of the kingdom who moves in this broken world and yet lives in this victory of Christ.